From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefania Bravo. This is From the South. We begin with breaking news from the United States, where the Justice Department has just announced 17 new charges against the Wikileaks founder, Julian Assange. Assange is still being held in detention in London after he was dragged out of the Ecuadorian embassy in April. He had enjoyed asylum there since 2012. The United States is already seeking his extradition on one charge of disclosing classified documents. He now faces a total of 18 charges, each of which carries a maximum sentence of between 5 and 10 years. We'll bring you more on that story as it develops. Moving on March 14th, Mozambique was devastated by Cyclone Idai, which left more than 600 dead and thousands displaced. To provide aid after the tragedy, Cuba sent a group of doctors. Our correspondent, Andre Vieira, traveled with the doctors to see firsthand their humanitarian work.
Beira, capital of the province of Sofala, was the area hardest hit by Cyclone Idai. Throughout the central region of Mozambique, over 600 people lost their lives. 90% of the country was affected by winds of more than 200 kilometers an hour. In response, Cuba sent a brigade of 40 health workers to provide assistance.
I'm not well and came here to see a doctor. My whole body hurts, my head and my back.
Over 20,000 people have been treated by the doctors of the Henry Reeve Brigade since they arrived here. Antonia Manuel lost her home in the cyclone. Ill and with her defenses low, she's one of nearly 300 people who have undergone surgery here.
I am feeling well. I was not eating. I could only take water and soup. But now, I no longer have those problems. The day I was operated, I asked my sister to bring me something to eat, and I feel very well now.
Beyond helping victims of the cyclone, the Cuban doctors are improving the lives of people who have been suffering ailments before the disaster hit.
I had been waiting for 2 years to have surgery in the central hospital. That's why I came here, to get the surgery I need.
And so Antonio Francisco is off to have his operation, something made possible only thanks to the efforts of the Cuban people who have financed all the work of the Henry Reeve Brigade.
To the best of our abilities, we have cured many patients who did not have access to medical care, and much less to surgery.
There is a phrase our commander-in-chief says that us Cubans will never forget, and it's that by providing aid internationally, we are paying back our debt with humanity.
Since it was set up in 2005, the Henry Reeve Medical Brigade has sent over 8,000 Cuban doctors around the world. Here in Mozambique, the land of Zamora Machel, the health workers from revolutionary Cuba are on their 28th mission. These are people who are ready to leave everything to help others around the world.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has won the general election, securing another 5-year term. According to the Election Commission, Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party, or BJP, is on course to take 300 out of the 543 seats in Parliament. Over 600 million people voted in the marathon election, which took 6 weeks to complete.
Today, we witness citizens from every nook and corner of the country filling these beggars' hands. I bow to my head before Indians' 1.3 billion citizens.
Prime Minister Modi received an eager welcome from thousands of supporters when he arrived at his party's headquarters in Delhi. Under heavy police cover, Modi took his victory walk to the BJP venue, where he was greeted with chants of Modi, Modi. He addressed the crowd following his election win.
I hope he will be doing a more good job. He already done such a a wonderful job. We are expecting India should be like a superpower country in the world right now. And we will getting more jobs and everything. We expect at least 2 more tenures from Modi government so that this country would be in top 3 of the world. That's it.
A player from Colombia's women's national football team was found dead on Wednesday. She had been missing for a number of days. The body of 22-year-old Lady Asprilla was found on the side of a road in the Cauca department. She had gone missing on May 19th after leaving a friend's house in her motorcycle. Police have told the local media that her body showed no signs of violence. And a 10-year-old girl from El Salvador died in U.S. custody last year after being detained by Border Patrol. The girl's death was not previously reported and brings the number of similar cases to 6. The U.S. Department of Health said the child was medically fragile and had a history of congenital heart defects. She died on September 29th from a fever and respiratory illness at a hospital in Omaha, Nebraska. The head of the U.S. Southern Command, Craig Fowler, has admitted the U.S. government has plans for a military intervention in Venezuela. Speaking at a forum at the Florida State University, Fowler said that the current strategy to apply pressure on the Venezuelan government is working, adding that the Southern Command's role is to be prepared for any eventuality, including a military intervention. During a press briefing in Moscow, Russia, the spokesperson for Russia's foreign ministry condemned any U.S. military intervention in Venezuela, as well as the Venezuelan opposition for holding talks with the U.S. Southern Command in this regard.
Major representatives of other regions are against an armed intervention in Venezuela. U.S. military continue open provocations. On the 9th of May, the Coast Guard vessel of the United States was identified in the territorial waters of Venezuela at a distance of 20 kilometers from the La Guaira port. This deteriorates the situation and does not help build additional trust and confidence. At the same time, the radical opposition has initiated talks with the U.S. Southern Command to oust the legitimate authorities. This is beyond common sense. We urge upon all responsible politicians of Venezuela to adhere to exclusively peaceful methods of political struggle. We believe that any steps that are aimed at waging a civil war and any attempts to oust the legitimate president by force are unacceptable. This is a way and path of violence and bloodshed.
Workers of Argentina's public television station are condemning what they say is censorship and political persecution by the government of Mauricio Macri and by the president of the Argentinian Journalism Forum. We have the details in this report.
Se convierta en un vocero del gobierno.
In a statement distributed on social media, public television workers reject the censorship they have suffered since President Mauricio Macri took office.
Yesterday, we suffered an attack on our freedom of speech. 3 co-workers were sanctioned, and a legal process was started against them for referring to the political situation in Venezuela as a coup attempt, which is nothing less than the truth, and for calling Juan Guaidó a self-proclaimed president. On top of this, on Saturday, we were the only outlet in the country that did not cover the news of Alberto Fernández running for president.
Agustín Lecky, a delegate of the Buenos Aires Press Union, also condemned the double standard in the work of the Secretary of Public Media, Hernán Lombardi.
They allow journalists who came in with this government to talk about the supposed tyranny that exists in Venezuela, about the dictator Maduro, but at the same time, they want to sanction those who condemn a clear coup attempt and call Guaidó a self-proclaimed president who was not elected by the Venezuelan people. We do not deal in subjective opinions. We want to inform, and why we denounce that the public television is disappearing from the media map. They are giving away everything to private media. This is the role that this government came to fulfill.
Through a communique, the union warns about other irregularities in the administration of the Cambiemos party, which violate labor laws.
Months before presidential elections, the management of the TVP newscast under Néstor Slaucero decided to incorporate political supervisors to the different emissions of the newscast to carry out tasks similar to those carried out by bosses. but without the required public competition as established by law. They have lower wage, empty out relevant content from our weekly newscast, cancel weekend shows, on top of other violations of the labor laws.
Journalists are being widely persecuted. Ever since the civilian military dictatorship, we haven't seen any sanctions or layoffs due to reasons that threaten freedom of speech.
For press workers, the situation was further aggravated when a news manager fired long-tenured journalists who had been running news programs for many years, showing that no employee is safe.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. Students have faced heavy repression by police in Honduras during a protest against President Juan Orlando Hernández near Congress. Dozens of demonstrators demanded lawmakers to annul at least 11 decrees aimed at privatizing the health and education sectors. They joined teachers and doctors who have been staging a strike for over 2 weeks. Police tried to disperse the protesters with tear gas. Organizers say they will continue demonstrating on Thursday across the country. The new cabinet of Haiti's Prime Minister Jean-Michel Lapin has been unveiled, but with only 3 women making up the 18-member cabinet. The women will oversee the ministries of Haitians living abroad, women's rights, and public health. The official decree of ministerial appointees signed by Lapin and President Jovenel Moïse also lists 4 new members. Other ministers of the former government have been renewed. Lapin will also take on the role of Culture and Communications Minister. Police and security forces in Brazil have protested in front of Congress. They want changes to the pension reform proposal, which they say puts them in a situation of uncertainty and insecurity.
National security workers in Brazil gathered outside the country's National Congress, calling for modifications to their pension reform proposal. According to the police labor union, the current proposal does not afford them any peace of mind.
This mass public outcry is against the pension reform plan that was drafted in camera. In its current state, the plan discriminates against police officers. It takes away their right to get a pension due to high-risk activities. If a police officer dies while on duty and their spouse is under the age of 44, their partner will not receive a pension. In the case of municipal guards, who I'm representing, their retirement age increases to 65 years old, but it's impossible for a police officer to work past the age of 55.
The protest follows Jair Bolsonaro's government's refusal to amend several points which negatively affect police. This includes failing to differentiate between the retirement age for men and women and the pension plan for families following death while on duty or as a consequence of being at service.
Our logic is simple. How does a person that carries equipment, some of which are dangerous, and deals with the day-to-day stress of being a police officer, do so until the age of 65? We are not asking for any privilege. All we want is what we deserve. This includes adding civil guards to the plan for the national security forces.
Brazil elected a federal government based on its promise to prioritize national security. In practice, they have not yet promoted any policies regarding these concerns. In fact, contrary to their campaign promises, they have developed a pension reform proposal that damages workers in general, but specifically workers in the national security forces. Their life expectancy is a lot less when compared to other workers.
Official sources revealed that on Thursday, Congress will publicly debate the pension reform proposal and the role of police officers and teachers.
Moving on, doctors in Sudan are threatening to go on strike if protests demanding a civilian government are not met. The doctors gathered in front of a hospital to show their solidarity with protesters. Talks on who should lead a governing body between civilians and the military were suspended last Monday after a disagreement. Protests have been ongoing since April after former President Omar al-Bashir was ousted from power.
Hospitals in Sudan suffer from a lack of facilities and medicine. Some patients cannot be treated because they can afford it, and they die as the cost of the treatment in hospitals is very high. Some medicines are not even available here. In Sudan, cases of cancer are widespread.
Police in Nigeria have arrested dozens of kidnappers over the past 2 weeks in operations in the states of Kaduna, Niger, and Katsina. According to authorities, hundreds of rounds of ammunition were seized from the suspects. The arrest and seizures are part of Operation Puf Ader, which was launched to curb a wave of kidnappings in Nigeria. The Libyan Prime Minister of the Government of National Accord has met with tribe leaders during his visit to Tunisia. Fayez al-Sarraj addressed the country's delicate political situation and the need for unity, among other issues. Al-Sarraj also spoke to a group of ambassadors to Libya who are stationed in the Tunisian capital for security reasons.
This assault, which has cost us hundreds of deaths from each side, it has no place to be. We were on the brink of resolving the crisis that our country has been experiencing for years through peaceful ways. But this assault has radically destroyed the political process.
In Gabon, President Ali Bongo has sacked his vice president and the forestry minister amid a timber smuggling scandal. No reason was given for their dismissal, but it comes after 300 containers of Kevasingo wood, which is illegal to export, was discovered at a port. There is a high demand for the wood in Asia, where it is used to make furniture. Nearly 2/3 of Gabon is covered in forests, and the timber industry is essential for the country's economy. At least 2 people have been killed and several others injured in a bomb attack in Somalia. The car bomb exploded near a checkpoint in Mogadishu. Al-Shabaab claimed responsibility for the blast, which targeted a convoy escorting officials and lawmakers to the presidential palace. Casualties include members of the security forces. Photographers have displayed images at an exhibition to bring back memories of Gambia's political past and how it affected families. The exhibition is titled Portraits for Positive Change and aims at telling the stories of people under the country's former leader, Yahya Jammeh. He was in power from 1994 to 2017. The project started in 2016.
It wasn't that difficult actually to convince people, because I think people were so anxious and really wanting to tell their stories. Often, they'd hidden these stories away for many, many years, and people were, were very, very forthcoming.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Indonesia, residents in Jakarta have called for peace as municipal workers clean up the city after protests that left 6 people dead. Municipal workers cleared up burnt vehicles, broken pavements, and debris. People urge the government to ensure peace prevails and ask the protesters not to use violence to express their discontent with the electoral results that confirmed President Joko Widodo's win.
This protest was a matter of rights. It is measurable. I'm hoping for a non-anarchistic protest. With these kind of incidents, it is very annoying. And I see this not only from the protesters, but from the police or the military side too. They were very persuasive and treated protesters inhumanly.
The European Union is heading to the polls to choose a total of 751 parliament delegates. More than 400 million people are eligible to vote in one of the biggest electoral exercises in the world. There will be 4 days of voting across the 28-nation bloc, with the UK and the Netherlands voting first. Ireland goes to the polls the following day. The remaining 25 EU nations will cast their ballots over the weekend. The UK is voting as the country wrestles with its plans to leave the bloc altogether.
I also feel it's important to send a message that we should be in Europe, and whoever we do send to Europe for whatever length of time until Brexit does or doesn't happen should be people that care about the European Union and care about the UK's place in Europe.
Because there's still a lot of power in what's being decided in the in Brussels around Brexit as well. So getting more MPs there who are against Brexit has to have some kind of an effect, I think.
Our correspondent in London, Pablo Navarrete, has the details.
People in the United Kingdom are today going to the polls to vote for European members of the European Parliament. Now, it is expected that around 40 million Britons are eligible to vote. The election results will be known on Sunday, and this comes in the context of a profound crisis for UK Prime Minister Theresa May, who many are now saying will not last beyond a few more days. According to the Times newspaper, she is expected to have a meeting with Graham Brady, the head of the influential 1922 club of Conservative MPs, and it is possible that she will have to announce a timetable for her resignation as Prime Minister as early as tomorrow. It is expected that the Conservative Party will do very badly in these Euro elections, with them coming up to third place. It looks like the polls point to the two biggest parties being the main opposition party led by the socialist Jeremy Corbyn and the newly formed Brexit Party headed by the far-right politician Nigel Farage, who are campaigning exclusively on a Brexit platform. So Theresa May is feeling intense criticism and pressure, and is now openly under attack by her cabinet, who are briefing in the newspapers. She suffered another setback yesterday with the resignation of the cabinet minister Andrea Leadsom, and now her position is looking increasingly fragile. So European elections voting takes place today. The results will come in on Sunday. Theresa May's days as Prime Minister of the UK look increasingly numbered.
That was our correspondent Pablo Navarrete from London, and today we end in Bolivia, where handmade embroidery is one of the country's most important cultural traditions. These costumes tell the story of slavery during the Spanish conquest.
Patience, along with mastering the use of a needle and a thimble, are key when it comes to creating these costumes by hand.
We want to remember how our grandparents used to dress when they danced La Morenada. These customs date back to the 1950s and 1960s. With our work, we are protecting this heritage.
The dance known as La Morenada is one of the most traditional, popular dances in Bolivia.
These are two different kinds of customs, el moreno turrilito y el moreno campana, all of them embroidered by hand on the assembly frame. If you look closely, is this custom branched and other shapes are embroidered.
La Morenada represents the story of slaves that were brought from Africa to work on the silver mines in Potosí. These slaves, while in chains, had to climb 4,000 meters above sea level. The customs are helping tell this story.
I want to show how heavy the customs were before. Their weight could reach 50 kilos, and others between 30 and 50 kilos.
Before, the sparkle of the costumes came from the use of real stones. Sewing thread was silver, but now those materials have been replaced by costume jewelry. But the tradition is fading.
Younger generations don't want to work in this. I tell them, let me teach you. But they want to be paid to learn. They should pay me for teaching them this art.
Nonetheless, Jorge has an idea to preserve this tradition.
Besides embroidering, I am also decorating houses with these patterns and shapes. That's the plan I have.
The Morenada and its costumes have been recognized by UNESCO as a masterpiece and an oral and intangible cultural heritage of humanity. Each group of dancers is composed of 600 people.
And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.